Everyone, and welcome to an episode of Shed Talk. We are here today, and actually, we are outside today because it's a very lovely morning, and I usually try to pre record a few episodes at a time. But I am actually going to read part of a chapter of my first book from the Pages of Deresa series, Tears of the Unknown. I will be reading a section of chapter 14, and basically, where we are at this point. The main character, Claire, has gone through so much, and she just woke up from a nightmare of her abusive father's past. And where we are at right now, at the point of the story, is the characters have all settled down for the night. It's raining outside and storming, and Claire has just, after waking up from this nightmare, she's freaking out. And so we're going to read from here and see how it goes. Claire woke up from the dream of her past. She was all sweaty and actually a little scared. She breathed in and out heavily until she looked around to see Royce in his meditating state and Zeke fast asleep. She got up being afraid to fall back to a deep sleep. So she walked over to the window of the little shack and leaned against the wall on her side and watched as the rain got heavier, lighter, and heavy again. She was trying to look to the stars as she had promised Grill, but the rain was blocking any sight of the stars that night. Zeke started to wake for an unknown reason, maybe of his fate, but he began to wake. He looked over to Claire, who was staring out the window. He quickly rubbed his eyes and walked over to her. Claire never noticed him, but Zeke stood behind her for several minutes before saying anything. "Claire, can you not sleep or something?" he asked quietly. She was stunned to hear his voice. She stared back out the window and said, "I'm okay." Zeke knew something wasn't right. He had to comfort her, he thought to himself, but he didn't know exactly what to say, but he did say the right words to her in the end. "Claire, I just want to say that I'm sorry," he softly said. "For what?" she asked, confused. "For you being caught up in all this. No one should be involved in such a hard situation. This final war thing shouldn't even be going on," the Salindo claimed. "It's not your fault, Zeke. It's just fate. It's destiny. But no matter what we do, we can't escape it," she explained. Claire then chuckled. "But our free will is what decides how we are going to do it." Zeke knew that she was right. She kept on speaking and mentioned something to him that would prove her theory. "Honestly, if anything, Zeke, I need to thank you," she slowly said, looking out the window. Her reflection was coming from the window. She could see Zeke's and saw that he was confused. "Thank me?" he asked. Claire stopped looking at the window and sat down on the floor to be eye level with him. She had gotten eye level with him before, but this was the first time she sat down, and she only stood less than a foot away from him. Zeke could see a smile from Claire, but he still felt sympathy for her. "Yeah," she softly began. "I would like to thank you for coming with me." "What do you mean?" "After Brayar came and took everything from us, I set out to do what I needed to do, to get my hands on him. But I only found out there was more than just him involved. What I'm trying to say, after we said our goodbye to Octilio, you and Kif stayed with me. I thought the two of you were going to stay behind or go your separate ways right then and there," she explained, softly and slowly keeping her face to the floor. She smiled and finally looked at Zeke. "But you didn't. You came with me." Claire continued speaking, but she started to tear up a little bit. They were tears of joy as she smiled more at him. "I want to thank you for being with me." Zeke smiled back at her with embarrassment. He then would tell Claire something that would always be engraved into Claire's mind forever. "Claire, I made a promise to myself," he replied slowly. "What was it?" Claire asked, eager to know. He chuckled as he spoke. He was a little embarrassed to actually mention something like this to her. "I promised that I would never leave my family to handle any situation alone," he finally said. Zeke looked to the floor and chuckled. He moved his eyes away from her. Claire smiled and leaned over, kissing the forehead of the Salindo. She leaned down and smiled as Zeke looked back to her. "It's not funny, Zeke. That's actually a touching promise," Claire said, smiling to calm her friend down. Zeke showed a half-cocked smile. "Octilio always told me that family doesn't end with blood. He told me that a family makes up of people you love the most, and they love you back. They are your closest friends in life." And I'm glad that he was your friend, Zieg. And I'm glad that you're my friend too, she said as she patted his head. Zieg smiled at Claire. The two turned their heads and looked back out the window. No more words didn't need to be said. For a while, they were happy. It was a beautiful memory for the two. It was a moment where they both were alone and could get a lot off their chest. Hey, Claire, you've seen the world. Haven't you seen the Tree of Life? No, can't say that I have. No one that is alive today has ever seen the tree, except for the people of legend. Me, you, and Kif will be the first of our species since our ancestors to see the tree. Claire began to talk a little slowly. My father had a beautiful picture of Deresa's hands giving life to the Tree of Life, and my mother told me so many bedtime stories over that painting. I still remember her story of how she and my dad got it. At night, when I was really, really little, they would tell me the story of the war between the sun and the moon, how Deresa gave the tree the ability to birth life. Zieg was stunned to hear what Claire was talking about. He had never heard her mention anything of her parents. He knew her parents abandoned her, but nothing else he knew of them. Claire, you've never mentioned anything about your parents to me, Zeke pointed out, a little stunned. Claire's smile slowly began to fade. It was the first time she had ever told anyone about her parents. Not even Grill knew of the abuse she took as a child. My mother was the only person who protected me. She tried at first, but she couldn't. My father was just so abusive to her. If I could see her today, I wish I could say thank you for protecting me. Sorry that I ran away to leave you alone to face him. Her smile was completely gone. He would beat me to a bloody pulp, and he would beat her for defending me. I don't know how many times she should have been dead. I'm certain she probably was killed. Or she finally had enough and killed him the night I ran away from home. Claire looked to the ground, setting her head between her knees with great sadness. She thought about her mother. She loved her mother, and she loved Claire. But she nor her mother wasn't strong enough to face her father. Zeke looked at Claire with great sympathy. He was about to cry. He always thought she was an abandoned orphan, not a child that ran away from home. It was hard for Claire to tell him about her past. Not even Grill and his father knew of her parents. And they called you a monster, Zeke softly said, looking at his saddened friend. Zeke sat up, started to walk back to where he had been sleeping. He then stopped and turned back to Claire's voice. Zeke, Claire softly said, still looking towards the floor. Yeah, he softly replied back. Whatever happens, don't leave me, she pleaded as she began to burst into heavy tears. Although Zeke couldn't see her face, he could see her tears fall from her face and fall to the floor. It had begun to thunder and lightning outside. One struck and shined, reflecting off of Claire's tears. The Salindo had seen a tear from Claire before, but to actually see and hear her cry, it was something that made his heart hide. Claire brought her knees to her face and hugged them to hide her face and her tears better. Claire, I know that I can be pretty annoying at times, but I just want you to know that no matter what, I'll be there for you. I promise, Zeke replied. Thank you, Claire cried, grasping her legs tighter and burying her face further into them. Good night, Claire, the Salindo said as he went back to the other room to fall back to sleep. Claire tried her best to hold her tears, but she couldn't hold them anymore. Yes, she had shed a tear, but to cry like this was something she hadn't done before. She was crying over everything. She hadn't been able to cry like this since Girl gave his and his father's home to her. Claire was crying over the death of her son and her home. She cried over everything that had touched or hurt her heart since their journey had begun. She was even finally crying the tears that she never shed after the loss of her husband, Grill. She would cry throughout the night until Zeke awoke again before Kif and Royce, several hours later, into the next morning. And that is that. And I hope that you enjoyed. Hopefully I can bring up a few more videos after a while. Have a good day, everyone.